Shout out to Aaron. He said, Ruslan, did you see or react Kurt Franklin's conversation they had about marriage and how many forced marriages fail? Your thoughts? I did not see that. I did not see that, Aaron. I saw some of those clips, but I did not see that clip specifically. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation. Listen, forced marriages is I don't know what that means. Forced marriage. Marriage has historically been about duty, commitment, honor, and provision for children. It's only within modern times have we added all these romantic components and romantic elements to marriage, to where now you got to have all these other things that constitutes a happy marriage. If marriage is about family, the continuation of family, stability for family, duty, creating family, honoring the other person, I don't really know what a forced marriage is. Now, again, I don't know what Kirk was saying, so I'm just responding to the idea of a quote unquote forced marriage. They mean like a shotgun marriage. So if you get a woman pregnant, therefore you have to marry her in the church, and that's a shotgun marriage. Well, yeah, that happens. And I've seen people who that's happened to, and 15, 20 years later, they're still married, happily married. One of them, a close friend of mine went through this. Got a girl pregnant, wasn't sure if it was going to work out, married her. They have another kid afterwards. They've been married 15 years. He's a pastor. They're happy. Those situations happen. I think it's about the character of the people. Like if both people are committed to saying, I'm going to become a healthy, stable spouse for the other person so that I can get the benefits of being in a healthy marriage, which is a healthy family, which is a healthy home, which is a healthy fill in the blank, right? If those commitments are there, people can make a marriage work because Christian people who love Jesus can make a marriage work when they're following God's ways, right? Now, that's going to come with sacrifice. But again, this notion that a marriage isn't going to have sacrifice, so you're not going to have to die to yourself, it's a relatively modern way of looking at these things. It's a really relatively modern way of looking at these things. This idea that like your apex in life should be about your happiness. You know what I mean? Like that's very modern, very modern. So hopefully that provides some additional context. But maybe I'll go back and look at that Kurt Franklin video. So again, I don't know what Kirk said. I don't know the context of that situation. I don't know what was discussed. And so I'm just going based off the idea of like a quote unquote forced marriage. That's a big thing. A single pastor is frowned upon big time. Ruslan, what do you think? Yeah. I think a single pastor is frowned upon. Sometimes that's for good reason. Do you consider a two-parent home broken if they are not believers in Jesus? It's a great question, MW. No, I don't. I think broken people are going to have broken situations. I think broken people will create other broken people. I don't know if I would call that a broken home per se. You have two parents, they don't believe in Jesus, but they have a functional marriage. Is that better if you were in a blended family and one of the parents believed Jesus? I don't know. Like we just start going, we're just throwing out hypotheticals. You know? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I would say ultimately, we're all broken people. Ultimately, we all need Jesus. Ultimately, we all need to commit and love and lead out of duty and honor and commitment. And then we work through the other aspects of whether someone is, following the ways of society deemed as what is and isn't a blended family. Right. So like, yes, we're all broken, but it doesn't, we're all broken. At the same time, let's not act like what's obviously broken isn't broken. Does that make sense? Like we're all broken, but like, let's not pretend that like two sets of kids don't have an advantage having the father in the home and the mother in the home. That doesn't mean that the redemption is not possible. That doesn't mean that God can't use the situations. And so I keep prefacing this because someone's going to hear this and take offense to it. So yes, we all need Jesus, absolutely, but that doesn't mean that the person that's clearly in a broken situation is not in a broken situation just because we have Jesus. That doesn't mean Jesus can't restore and do miracles. He can. However, that is not the way the good Lord intended it. That is, all things considering, relatively modern. Meaning that 300 years ago, you didn't have these situations. And when you did, it was tragic. It was awful. It was terrible. It was it was obviously acknowledged as broken. For whatever reason now, we don't want to acknowledge the obvious, which is like, yeah, man, like when two people who have kids aren't in the house with their kids, that is not the way that God intended. That is not optimal. Thaddeus said, thank you for the super chat. He said, what made a marriage a valid marriage in the eyes of God? And when did this come to be? I think a marriage is a commitment. I think there's usually some sort of ceremony. I think historically there were ceremonies, and I think that you see that demonstrated within Scripture. Now, how those ceremonies played out is going to vary generation to generation, meaning like in the time of Abraham, it was probably looked different than in the time of Jesus, and in the time of Jesus, it probably looked different than, in the medieval phase. We would have to then go do an entire etymology of what marriage is and how it's evolved and all those sorts of things. In some cultures, a new wife would raise the child from other marriages as her own without the involvement of the actual mom. Sometimes the kids don't even know, is this considered a broken home? Are you saying if someone's widowed? Yeah, and again, I think we're going to the exception to the rule, right? If we're constantly going to the exception to the rule, that's not the rule. Like the standard is the standard. The standard is a specific design. Shout out to Kyle. Thank you for the super chat. Random question. What do you think about a single adopting a child? Do you think that would be considered broken? I mean, I would say a single person adopting a child is better than the child growing up in a foster care system. That's better than that. But I would not advise a single person to adopt a child unless they were like, hey, I'm pledging myself to be celibate and I want to have a child. Like, oh, that's a little different. I probably still wouldn't advise it though. No, not widowed. The mom does not want the child. Yeah, that's brokenness, dog. Come on, bro. If a woman is in a relationship, if a man is in a relationship, he gets married or he has a kid, the mom doesn't want to be in the kid's life. He then moves on. It's still a baby. It doesn't know that that's not his biological mom. That's broken, bro. That's broken. It's sad, but that is what it is. It's broken. And some of this stuff can be manipulated multiple ways. There are women that keep the father away from the man, from the kids. There are men that keep the mother away from the kids. I've seen it every which way. My father left me and made another family. He visited me and my siblings every week. I was still scared and resented my father for a long time. Yeah, that's the reality Manny pointed out. That's the reality that is pointed out. Anything that's not whole is broken. Thank you for simplifying that for us, Morpheus. Morpheus just simplified the whole game. We see according to the Bible that prayer is extremely important in terms of us being transformed from the inside out when we get aligned with God's will. For the Christians watching this channel, I want you guys to implement these spiritual disciplines in your day-to-day life. And the only way I've been able to do this consistently is through writing down my prayers in a prayer journal that does a few things. One, it allows me to reflect and come to God humbly and ask him to move on my behalf. And two, it allows me to document my prayers, which ultimately help me remember the very things that I was praying for and see the hand of God tangibly in my life when he answers them. So I would urge you, consider writing down your prayers. It could be in a blank notebook. It could even be on your phone. Or you could check out the one I personally designed and used from my own quiet time and spiritual discipline that I think will be a huge blessing. It's the exact structure and system that I've used for years to pray and be more consistent in my spiritual disciplines. You can pick yours up today by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.